Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story about a crane operator who got overtime money in the best way possible. Be sure to join our channel if you're new here. Here we go. Ruin my Friday night? We'll ruin your Monday morning. I'm a truck/crane operator for a company that delivers building materials to construction sites. Wood, drywall, concrete, windows, doors, you name it. I was on my way back to the depot around 5 p.m. on a Friday. A seller from the company HQ calls me and asks me to move some stuff for a customer on my way back, about a 10-kilometer detour. She didn't tell me how much, though. Being the workaholic that I am, I obliged to go to the address, and when I get there, it's empty, as I expected. Almost all construction stops at 4 p.m. I call the customer, and he tells me to move 10 pallets of drywall and 8 pallets of concrete and make room for it on the other side of the building. I unfold the crane and start loading. Pallets are spread everywhere, so I have to pack up the crane and move the truck, adding time and fees until I'm done. Truck's now loaded to over the legal limit, but I'm just fine to go around the house on private land, so no big deal. The time is now 8 p.m., and I get a call from my chief of transport or dispatch. Call him CT and me. CT, hey, how you doing? Me, just unloading and going around to unload. CT, what? It's been 3 hours. It's taken you 3 hours to load 2 pallets? Me, wait, 2 pallets? The customer said 18 pallets. CT, I'm going to call you back. He hangs up. I now get around to the other side and see that there's no place ready for 18 pallets. I'm now tired and hungry and absolutely PO'd. Keep in mind, I start work at 4 a.m. I just start putting pallets where they fit. I don't care for sorting or anything. I throw everything off in one place. My manager calls me and asks what's happening, and I explain to him, and he almost hits the roof. Turns out those 2 pallets were wrongly placed delivery, meaning original delivery driver placed them wrong, so I was going to move them for free. The customer had tricked me because he knew I was young and wanted to prove myself. I eventually get all the stuff of report every bit of time, replacing and movement of the truck, and head back to the depot. Now me, my manager, CT, and the seller have been at work 6 hours more than we should on a Friday night. We get everything together with paperwork and stuff before we head home. Monday morning. I get to work as usual and start doing my route of deliveries as usual. Construction starts at 7 a.m. I get back in my cab for a delivery from 7:10 a.m. 25 missed calls from Friday's customer and 2 from CT. I don't dare call customer, so I call CT and he explains. The customer equals AC for a-hole customer. Me. I have 25 missed calls from AC? What have you done this morning? White smile and a nervousness in my voice. CT. Me and manager have executed justice. AC got the bill AC wanted to avoid and extra fees to go with it. He's now been billed for. CT, M, seller, and ME's combined 6 hours overtime, 5 replacing of truck, 6 hours of extra fuel cost, 18 moving fees, 18 fees for non-open area of delivery. All this combined totals up to 702,200 SEK or 75,711 US dollars. Me now laughing my butt off. So should I answer him or... No, CT says. For the love of God, block his number. You should not have to deal with him now. The seller's taking care of it. Moral of the story, don't scam truckers. We do a hazardous and tiring job as it is. We don't need your bullcrap. And our next story. Both the man who stole our business and the landlords who helped him lost big time. About 8 years ago, my family owned a very prestigious and well-known restaurant that had been in business for over 40 years. It was run by my mother. My father passed away, leaving her to run the restaurant and raise me. She was successful at running it and did so for about 18 years, and I stepped in to help run it as I got older. The restaurant was located in this boutique-style plaza building with designer shops, etc. At one point, my mom owned this building with partners, but we eventually sold it to new owners who then became our landlords. After operating successfully for all those years, times got rough, money became very tight, and the area didn't have a place for our restaurant anymore, so we had to close it down. Our savings were very low from all the money we put in to keep the place alive. We owed people money, and we had loans against our home for the place after we fell on hard times. After closing, we were trying to sell and liquidate everything we could to make ends meet and pay off money owed. It was hard. My mom was stressed beyond belief. A smaller restaurant we'd go to on occasion was located across town. We were a French restaurant, and this one was Italian. Both of our places were upscale, so we sort of befriended the owner. He was pretty arrogant and big-headed, so we'll call him BH. Once BH learned of us closing our restaurant, he approached us with an opportunity for us to revive our restaurant with a new concept that involved a partnership between the two of us and both of us working as chefs to drive its success. He had an investor, so we were interested. We showed BH the entire restaurant and its million-dollar renovations we've done, all the equipment and assets we have to run this business. It was a very good idea at the beginning. All we needed to do was have BH and his investor buy in for a very reasonable price. They didn't even try to talk us down on the buy-in. However, it took quite a while for them to move forward. We waited until finally the landlord told us to get out immediately. No more time to wait for this opportunity or liquidate. Little did we know the entire time BH was working with the landlords behind our backs to basically take possession of the restaurant space and all of its assets to move his current restaurant across town into what used to be our restaurant. This amounted to millions of dollars in equipment, fixtures, furniture, and inventory that we desperately needed to liquidate to pay off the bank so we wouldn't lose our home. The landlord signed the new lease to BH and only charged him first month's rent, no key fee like most commercial rentals do when there's equipment and assets already in the space. So now, without that key fee and BH having possession of the restaurant, the landlord decides to try and regain that money by trying to sue my mother for the remainder of the lease since we broke the lease. The landlord inflated the rent amount to about $2,000 higher than we were actually paying, and we basically owed them $220,000 in rent for the remainder of the lease, even though we were no longer tenants of the restaurant space. My mom was in absolute tears when she got the letter, but nothing ever happened from that because she filed for bankruptcy. The revenge. For about 5 years after this all happened, I stepped away from the restaurant business for a little bit and became very successful from getting into various trades with the internet and the automotive industry. I won't go into detail about how I became successful, but some people showed me the ropes to these trades. I ended up getting creative with them, forming niches, and learned how to market it. This resulted in me reviving my former restaurant in a new city and opening a couple of successful bars/clubs, good ones, not dirty clubs, that I tend to sell after some time. All of this time, I kept my eye on BH's restaurant. It was always dead, and I was always hearing from former employees about the labor laws he was violating, with taking all his waiters' tips and pulling shady tricks to screw over his employees out of pure greed. While he acts like he's the world's best chef and restaurateur, he would even try talking down to me when I'd run into him. He was a constant liar. He claimed he brought fine dining to the area, when we in our restaurant were actually known by word of mouth that we were the original fine dining restaurant of the area. To this day, people say how much they miss it, but I always encourage them to visit the new one. By now, a lot of shops in the plaza where the restaurant is located have closed and the building's pretty vacant. Only BH's restaurant and about 4 to 5 other stores remained. The building goes up for sale by, you guessed it, the landlords who screwed me and my mother. For some time, I've been wanting to open a nice, modern, mid-sized nightclub in the area of which our old restaurant was once located. The area needed one, demographics are right and everything. I was planning to acquire and revive an existing nightclub in the area, but the plans fell through. Turns out this old building was the perfect location for the nightclub concept I've been wanting to open. I ended up purchasing the entire building from these craphead landlords for almost half of what my mother and her partners originally sold it for. Mother and partner sold it for $1 million even. I bought it myself for just over $600K. It was a confrontation, an awkward moment, but they had no choice but to sell it to me, so the landlords took a big loss on their building. After purchasing the building and finalizing everything, I had dinner at BH's restaurant for the first time. Totally awful experience. BH refused to modify my order because that's the way it's done, and kept me there for 4 hours with nobody else in the restaurant. After paying my bill, I served him with an eviction notice, letting him know I was terminating the lease and demolishing the building to build my new nightclub. He was also reported to the Department of Labor and may not be able to move his restaurant somewhere else. And our last story. She picks it up and without tasting it, decides it's not warm enough. For a bit of context, I work at a Mediterranean restaurant, and during our lunch rush, we get so many orders that making everything fresh is impossible, so we use water heaters to keep things warm. One of these is our tomato bisque soup, which is very popular and comes with shredded mozzarella on top. So on the particular day, lunch rush was bigger than normal. We were rushing around like crazy dealing with food and cleaning and everything. One family comes in and the mother orders the aforementioned soup. So the girl who's working the cold side of the kitchen, we'll call her Sarah, is filling the cup and in her rush burns herself pretty bad. This soup is effing hot. So I bring it out in its styrofoam cup to the woman and she picks it up and without tasting it, decides it's not warm enough. I don't want to argue, so I take it back and everyone's PO'd. Our grill guy, who we'll call John, is especially miffed because Sarah burnt herself and this lady thinks it's cold. John takes the soup, puts it in a pot, puts it on the stove, and cranks the heat all the way up. The GD soup spends 10 minutes engulfed in flames. He takes it off the stove. It's charred black on the top and bubbling like crazy. He puts it in a plastic cup. It's too hot for styrofoam, and I take it out to her in excruciating pain while doing so because it's so hot, and set it down and head back to the kitchen. Not 5 seconds later, a primordial roar of "Ah, crap, it's hot!" echoes throughout the store. She never said anything to us, but Sarah yelled back, "You said to warm it up!" And that's the day me and my coworkers committed battery on the job. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.